Helped me become a millionaire by age 32. Totally changed my economic future. Just the ideas in a simple little book. Amazing. Then he recommended something for me to listen to by Earl Nightingale called The Greatest Secret. That was my listening library to begin with. The Greatest Secret by Earl Nightingale. I listened to it over and over again. I wore out 2 or 3 of those big old 78s. Now it's easy. From Nightingale Conant, you can get it on cassette, and you can get it on CDs. But back then, it was the big 78. So your listening library and your visual library. Next now is your reading library. And we won't go through a whole list of the best books, but here's a good book to get if you want a good list of the best books. It's called How to Read a Book. Simple. How to Read a Book by Adler. Chief editor of the Encyclopedia Britannica, Mortimer Adler. He wrote a book called 6 Great Ideas that's excellent. He wondered, are ideas tangible? Are ideas real? Or are they nothing? And we discussed earlier, they can't be nothing. They have to be something. But he wrote this book, along with another author, How to Read a Book. Now, if you master this book, you can get so much more from a book. Now, it's a kind of a tough book to get through, but it'll give you some ideas on how to take a book and get the most out of it. Take a book and get the most out of it. But in this book is also a list of what he calls are the greatest books ever written. And I've used that book, that list, as a centerpiece for my library. It's got the classics, which I missed. I only went to 1 year of college, so I missed a whole bunch of stuff. I started making up for that by collecting these best books ever written. Interestingly enough, on that list is Old and New Testament. On every scholar's list, East or West. You just can't miss those as major sources. In addition to that, there's a book called Lessons of History, written by Durant. And I offer it because it's one of the classic writings of all time. You may not agree with his premise, but you certainly have to agree that it's one of the best well-written books ever. He and his wife wrote about 11 volumes on civilization. Take a speed reading course, you can get through those. But this little book, Lessons of History, is sort of a summary of their ideas on history. It's a classic. Then a classic I think most everybody's got. It's called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, where each sentence is a seminar. And you may not agree with his premise either in certain instances. But you don't want to read just what you agree with. And not just to read the positive. Make this note. You cannot live on mental candy. Just like you can't feed your children ice cream all the time and hope that they will be healthy. So you cannot live on mental candy. Someone says, well, I just read the positive stuff. That's not enough. And the reason is because you need to know both sides of the issue. So start your library like I did, age 25. I mentioned in another seminar, haven't read everything in my library, but I feel smarter just walking in it, right? Smart enough to buy it. Now I got to be smart enough to read it all. Then I got to be smart enough to sort through and decide what's valuable. So make that the next part now. In part of personal development for the mind, you got to sort through what you read, what you see, and what you hear, and decide which of all of that is valuable for you to try and do and master. This is where being a student comes in. Not a follower, but a student. Read both books and decide. You read one book on good health and it says, do what this book says, you'll live forever. You read the next book on health and nutrition and it says, if you do what that first book says, you'll die young. So someone says to me, Mr. Owen, which of these books should I follow? Jot this down. Neither one. Don't be a follower. Read both books and make up your own mind. Here's what's important in the final analysis. One of the best phrases for the day, I got this from my Canadian friend Harold Dyke, who gave it to me, and I've used it all these years. Here's what he said. Make sure what you finally do is the product of your own conclusion. Make sure what you finally do is the product of your own conclusion. Meaning you don't just follow, but you listen to both sides of the argument. You listen to the controversy. You try to master the points on both sides or three sides or whatever. Then you start charting your own course. It doesn't say you'll make always the right decision on what course to take or what to do. You can refine as you go. But make sure that what you do is the product of your own conclusions. Conclusions from the debate. Conclusion from what makes the best sense to you to try.